Won the League Cup.
Never won the League Cup. There's still... He just keeps everybody on their toes. He just gives people hope that there could still be a Europa League win, however unlikely, and there could be a win tomorrow. So it's going to be very, very interesting. How do you see that game going tomorrow, Mike?
I don't know. I really don't. I'd love to
Listen,
sit here
come
and
on,
say,
let's be honest.
No, do you know what?
City will be hot favourites.
Yeah.
They will. However, they don't like pressure. And it's great. Look, you can play Brighton off the park 5-0. You can play Bournemouth off the park 5-0. Great, congratulations. But it comes back to the Lukaku situation we were talking about earlier. Those players don't necessarily deal with the pressure. They've had an easy Champions League run. Let's face it, they've faced no one of any note. They waltzed their group. They've obviously walked their first leg. They're coming through it, so they're going to get through that. This, for me, is the first real test for these players this season. And pressure does funny things to people. I actually see 1-1, and I actually see extra time. Calling a winner, I think, is toss a coin, but I do see extra time.
When you say pressure, though, can I ask a question? When you say, do you mean pressure on themselves or pressure from Arsenal?
Yeah, I do. I think both, because there is an expectation. Neither one of those two managers has won the League Cup in this country. It is just the League Cup in inverted commas. So you look at it from that point of view and you think, all right, but it's silverware. There's pressure on Guardiola as a manager. We know what pressure's on Arsene Wenger as well. Yeah. There's pressure coming from everywhere. And as much as they get that every Saturday or whenever they play at 3 o'clock and when they go out and they play football professionally, oh my goodness me, Bournemouth have scored. They've levelled it up against Newcastle. They've come from 2-0 down to draw 2-2.
Callum Wilson?
It's not. It's Dan Gosling. 2 defenders have scored in the 80th and 89th minutes.
Rafa Benitez will be pulling out whatever hair.
Fuming.
Absolutely there. Anne-Marie, in terms of Carabao Cup final tomorrow, it's amazing that this game tomorrow is so important to Arsenal when in previous years he has poo-pooed the League Cup, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's not been on the high list of priorities for Wenger, let's be honest. And again, bringing out the stats, and I'm sure Michael heard this earlier on the radio, they were talking about how if Wenger does win the Cup tomorrow, he'd be one of 8 managers who's won the domestic Cup, so the FA Cup.
Yeah, the domestic treble, but that includes the old Division 1 and the Premier League.
And the Premier League. So again, if he wins tomorrow, he'll be exalted for that. But I have found Wenger frustrating over the last few years about not taking the League Cup seriously for me, and only now, because of its importance, now it's all the focus on that. And I think it's a real shame for the fans, because we've been saying for a long time, as you rightly said, Michael, a cup is a cup, a trophy, a win is a win, and you should attract those targets.
Goal.
It's at the Amex, and it's 4-1 to Brighton.
Oh,
so
wow.
that could have gone the other way. Could have been pulled back. So Lewis Dunk scored an own goal in the 85th minute.
Yeah.
Lockaday has just scored in stoppage time.
That's his first goal for them
It is,
well,
and points are well and truly in the bag at the Amex.
And helps the goal difference as well.
Fantastic.
Because right now...
especially with Newcastle Bournemouth going back to 2-2, because that's big for them.
Helps the goal difference.
They'd actually like West Brom to score, Brighton, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Anne-Marie, in terms of if Arsenal do win tomorrow, does it paper over the cracks at Arsenal?
It will paper over the cracks, but I think everybody who's an Arsenal fan, everybody who watches football now understands that Arsenal has very deep wounds, and we have another goal.
We've got another goal.
It's huge at the bottom of the table. Southampton have equalised at Burnley in the 91st
big goal
minute.
for Southampton.
It's a massive, massive goal. So the little live table that I read you out has just been
changed
turned upside down
absolutely.
in 10 minutes.
We'll look at that after 5 o'clock. Fantastic. Sorry, you were saying that, Marie.
It's fine. I understand that. It's the point I was making is that I think that the gaps, the scars, the cracks are so obvious now that there's no more paper to cover over them anymore.
Mike, in terms of the domestic cups, FA Cup, which Arsenal have won 3 times over the last few years, and the League Cup, they've actually become more important, in my opinion, because the bigger clubs are chucking millions of pounds to win the Premier League.
But it used to be in the olden days, in brackets. The FA Cup was the big one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If you win the division title, great. And that was when it was a 24-team league, not a 20-team league. So, look, for me, silverware is silverware. If you win a cup, it's a great thing. But the League Cup for me is really important, because how many times do we see a team win it and then go on a downward spiral up until May? So even if Arsenal do win it tomorrow, I think that's the end of their top 4 hopes.
But it's not the trophy they really want to win, though, is it?
Oh, I agree, definitely. They want to win the Premier League. But let me ask you two as fans, because I know you won't ask yourselves. How do you both see it going? As a fan, take your journalist hats off. What do you expect tomorrow from your football club?
Ladies first.
I think it'll be a Man City win.
Wow.
I think it'll be 2-1. I think Monreal will get the goal for us.
Monreal, yes.
Because he can.
He's more lethal than Lacazette.
He's more lethal than Lacazette. I think he will get it. I think I think Kevin De Bruyne is going to give us lots of problems tomorrow, and if we don't suffocate him, I think he will terrorise the defenders.
My heart would love Arsenal to win.
And as it should.
I expect Manchester City to win. I then chuck in this caveat that Arsenal know how to win cup finals
This is my point.
At Wembley.
This is why I fancy 1-1.
And it's ironic that the two teams then meet next Thursday again, which always seems to happen in cup competitions, isn't it? In a final that you play a team that you play in the league. I think having been beaten by Wigan during the course of the week, I think City will be at it tomorrow. I really, really do.
Agree.
I saw Liverpool dismantle Man City for half an hour at Anfield last month, I think it was. I don't know if Arsenal have a Firmino, a Mane type Salah trio that are going to go for it. But listen, it's a cup final. Anything can happen, as we saw on Monday, as we saw on Thursday. But I think you have to expect City to be favourites. But if Arsenal turn up, and I tell you who could be important for Arsenal tomorrow: Aaron Ramsey if he's fit, and Mesut Ozil.
Mesut Ozil's massive for me. I know a lot of Arsenal fans diss Ozil, and maybe you watch more Arsenal than I do. I've just watched him on the ball. I've been to the Emirates a few times this season. I think he's really, really got what it makes to be a Premier League player. I think he knows when to cross the ball. I think he understands the way the English game works. I just think he's a fantastic playmaker for Arsenal.
I agree.
And of course, listen, Mr. Aubameyang, who will play tomorrow, has a chance to get very early hero worship status should he score a goal. But listen, I think it's going to be exciting. No doubt we'll all be tuned in. Anne-Marie.
Can I just make a really quick point? You mentioned the point about Arsenal know how to win cup finals at Wembley. For me, when Arsenal lost at Spurs, when they played them at Wembley and Aubameyang was playing and Mkhitaryan was playing and Ozil was playing, you'd think that would give you confidence that they would be able to replicate that win, and they didn't. That's why I'm slightly nervous about the whole Wembley
thing. I understand what you're saying, but I think, Mike, a Premier League game, even though it's against your local rivals, is a different mindset to a 90-minute cup final where, you know what I mean?
But I actually think the pressure's off for Arsenal tomorrow, because there is that pressure in the league at the moment. They're the ones who are outside the Champions League spots, as are Spurs, to be fair. Everyone talks about Spurs, how wonderful they are, great football. They're fifth. They're not getting in the Champions League at the moment. So the
difference is, though, I think you can see a developing, as we have for 2 or 3 seasons, we can see a developing plan at Tottenham. I don't think Arsenal fans can see that at Emirates Stadium.
Yeah, okay, I agree from that point of view. But I just think that, like you, I think Wenger's time is up. I think that's a subject for a whole 2-hour show, if I'm honest. And I think that he needs to walk away. But what odds on him winning the League Cup tomorrow and walking away at the end of the season?
You wouldn't put it past him. This is ABN, London's Afropolitan station. This is the Voice of Sport. I'm joined in the studio by Anne-Marie Batson and Michael Kitchener. You might be surprised that I hooked these two together, bearing in mind that their allegiances in North London are red and blue. But they do work and dovetail beautifully together. The Premier League looks like it's wrapping up. It's ended Liverpool 4, West Ham 1 up on my screen.
It's also ended at the Amex, Brighton 4, Swansea 1.
Well done.
Burnley 1, Southampton 1 is also a result. Bournemouth 2, Newcastle 2 is
Rafa
now a result.
Benitez will not be happy. There was 3 points for the grabs. Well done to Bournemouth.
There's one game still playing. They're in the 5th minute of stoppage time. It's West Brom against Huddersfield. Incidentally, there's actually been 21 goals in 6 games this afternoon, which I don't think is a bad return.
And I think it makes Match of the Day quite interesting today.
Yeah, because how many weeks have you and I sat here during FA Cup weeks and we've been not bored necessarily. In fact, it's just finished at West Brom. West Brom 1, Huddersfield
West
2.
Brom, bang in trouble. Bang in trouble.
But it's nice to see the goals going. It's nice to see.
Absolutely.
And every single team has scored this afternoon. No clean sheets in the Premier League.
Great, and not disrespecting Liverpool, but it'd be good to see what I call the mid-table lower teams tonight in action, scoring goals in what sounds like entertaining games. So
and there's a 5:30 game. Don't forget, Watford against Everton, which is a mid-table clash.
That's going to be very, very interesting. How do we see that one going, Anne-Marie, from your viewpoint?
I think that's going to be a grudge match. I think very much so. Do you know what? I think Watford are going to nick it. They're full of confidence right now. They're flying high with their new manager. Troy Deeney is back in the team and contributing as ever. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Watford.
Okay, Mike, how do you see that one?
Do you know, I think 1-1. I think it's two teams. I think Big Sam knows how to go away from home and get a result. I think Watford are on a high after that thumping of Chelsea. So it's two teams that are relatively in form. Yeah. Just one stat I want to bring you. That goal for Southampton equalising against Burnley actually lifted them out of the relegation zone and put Swansea in it. Wow. So the relegation zone, as we speak, is West Brom, Stoke and Swansea. Ooh, but Swansea, Crystal Palace and Southampton all
and you know what
points.
It proves, Marie, that we've had West Ham improve, we've had Swansea improve. Who else have we had? Did we have some, Crystal Palace? Yeah. Any thought that your improvement is enough to get you out of trouble, that's gone out the window, isn't it? You've got to keep scraping for points, haven't you?
You do, and I do also wonder, with both Brighton and Southampton still in the FA Cup, maybe that's given them some confidence as well.
Yeah. Yes, it just shows what a cup run can do. How many times do we hear it? Yeah. Confidence in a team, a winning mentality.
And they can see, well, not quite the Twin Towers of Wembley, but depending on how the cup football goes, and you take inspiration from Wigan doing what they did against Man City, Southampton could be in a semi-final, so could Brighton. You can't rule it out. And I've got to say something about Brighton. Managed by the only black manager in the Premier League, and we will talk about that, or Anne-Marie will talk about it just after the break. He's doing a fantastic job, and we've got to play some homage to Glenn Murray.
Definitely.
Michael.
10 goals now.
He's got no pace, but he knows how to head a ball in.
He does. And you talk about Brighton doing well. That puts them 11th now, 31 points. 6 points. 6 points off the Europa League place.
There you go.
Now, that is huge. Who would have said? Who would say the three of us will be sitting here saying Brighton could get a Europa League spot? Fantastic. I really, really... congratulations to Brighton.
I spoke to Chris early in the season. I think it was after they came to the Emirates and lost by 2-0, and he said what he doesn't want his team to do is go to some of those big teams and take a hammering, because what that does, it means obviously you lose the game, you don't get any points, but it affects your confidence, you know. So the way that he sets up, it keeps them in the game for as long as possible, but if they lose, the whole thing hasn't been blown up. They can still go on to their next game with some level of confidence. And I think, if I've got this right, the only time they've actually taken a hammering was at home against Liverpool.
Yeah, that's correct.
I was away. I was watching that in Barbados, and I thought, oh, this is a bit painful.
I think the other thing for them is they got Manchester City at home out the way as the first game of the season.
And put up a hell of a performance as well.
Yeah, they still have to go to the Etihad in the next couple of weeks, Brighton. But don't forget, we are now down to the last 10 games for these teams.
Can you believe that, Anne-Marie? 10 games left in this season.
Absolutely. They've got Arsenal at home. They've got Everton away and Leicester at home for the next 3.
Spurs have got to go to the Amex as well.
And Man United as well. Yeah. So 3 of their next 5 home games are against big teams.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So today was absolutely vital. Yeah. Have they scored 4 before in this season?
Not in the Premier League.
That's
the first in the Premier League. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done to Brighton. Rafa Benitez. I can only imagine his mood on the way back to the Northeast. 2 goals to the good against Bournemouth, and then getting hauled in to make it 2-2. Right, the Premier League. Even without
take a breath.
Even without the so-called bigger clubs, and I know Liverpool were playing, and I can't ever disrespect them, but even without the Cities, the Uniteds, the Arsenals, the Chelseas playing, we have had a wonderful Premier League match day here. So we are going to go into the 5 o'clock news very, very shortly. What have we got coming up on the other side? Well, we have Anne-Marie Batson coming up on the other side. That's going to be absolutely fantastic. One of our regular journalists on the Voice of Sports show, taking the wheel of the car just after the news. Well, we've got some boxing, because I tell you what, we've got some... Next Gen coming up. We have Mr. Dubois, Mr. Yard, Mr. Barrett all fighting tonight. We will give you more details about that. They're fighting at the York Hall Bethnal Green in the heart of East London. We're going to preview that with our boxing sage Ayo Odemade. We will be talking to Natasha Henry as well about Formula One, because this week Mercedes